Hare Krishna. So I'll chant the Pranams mantra and then we can get into the discussion. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhete Girim Yat Kripa Bande Shri Gurum Din Tarinam Paramananda Badhum Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Vandeham Shri Guru Shridharamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shirupam Shagurjatam Shagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Parijanam Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Divam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Shakhan Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute तप्त कंचना गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पातरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तो स्वामीति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदो श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्ति वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कलयुग पावन हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय 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 श्री प्रभुपाद की जय इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य हिज भाई श्री भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय विशंबल भक्त वृंद की जय निताय गौर प्रेम नंदी हरि हरि बोल Hare Krishna. So we'll talk verse number 8 today. This should be our sixth class on the nectar of instruction. So just a quick summary that first two verses talked about things that we have to avoid in bhakti. And then after that, we have five verses which are talking about what are the things that we should be adopting, which are favorable for our bhakti. And now we are getting into the third section. Verse number 8 is about staying in Braja and following the footstep of the pure devotees. And then number 9 is residing at the holiest spot. So I don't know if I can cover verse number 8 because it's a very nice verse. It has a lot of technical understanding. So what I'll do is that I'll try to basically get done with number 8 and then give you some time to understand if you have any question or to make sure that you are getting the concept. So far, we have been studying things which are very, very powerful, very critical. And I'm hoping that this is giving you some deeper insight. Some of these things we might have heard here and there in a floating way, but once we systematically study, then it gives a deeper understanding of the subject. So that's the intent. So we'll get into the next verse and we'll explain as we go along. तन नाम रूप चरितादि सुकृत नानो अस्मृत युह क्रमेण रस नाम नासी नियोज्य तिष्ठन् ब्रजे तद अनुरागी जनानुगामी कालं मन्यादयखिलम् इति उपदेश सारम. Beautiful verse. नाम रूप चरितादि सुकृत नानु अस्मर्तयो क्रमेण रसना मनासि नियोज्य तिष्ठन् व्रजे तद अनुरागी जनानुगामी कलामन्याद अखिलम इति उपदेश सारम। अन्न नाम रूप चरितादि सुकीर्तनानु, by constantly chanting नाम रूप चरितादि of Lord Sri Krishna, tan Sri Krishna, asmartayo kramena rasana manasi niyojya, by engaging our tongue and mind in constant remembrance of the Supreme Lord. Tisthan braje tad anuragi jananugami. Tisthan, to live. Where? In the braja. With whom? Tad anuragi jananugami. Jananugami means the person who is anugami, who is followers of the science of Krishna consciousness. So residing in the braja and following the footstep of the anuragi, jana anuragi, the one who has anurag, who has devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, kalam anyadakhilam iti upadesasaram. Kalam is time, anyadakhilam, with full dedication, with due course of time, we, or the intense love for Supreme Lord will awaken. These are Upadeshasaram. These are the essence of all the instruction. So let's try to understand in a flow. One should, the first line, Tananam Rup Charitadi Sukritananu, one should discuss about Krishna's name, form, pastime, and character, etc. Asmritayo karmena rasna manasi niyojya. Remember them by gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. One should thus reside in Braja and serve Krishna, following the devotee who are attached to his bhakti. One should utilize one's full time in this way. This is the essence of all advice. Beautiful, beautiful verse. So we'll read a translation that's given in Nectar of Instruction. The essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day. Kala manyadakilam, 24, completely, full time, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes. Thereby, gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Braja, bracket, Golok, Vrindavan Dham, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotee. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotee who are deeply attached to his devotional service. So this verse is talking about that one should engage in limbs of the devotional service, reside in Braja, along with devotee who are following the bhakti in a certain anuraga, in a certain mood, and we'll talk about that, and follow their footstep. This should be done uh, with akhil chesta, with full endeavor. then at due course of time, the pure love for Krishna will awaken. That's nectar of instruction. Such a beautiful, clear instruction. We'll try to understand the purport, and as we go through the purport, we'll discuss as it comes. So Prabhupada starts saying in this purport that we have certain impression in our mind. Mind contains thousands of impressions from many lives that combine with each other and produce contradictory pictures. So we have impression of our so many innumerable birth in different living being, in the form of a different living being. And in each form, there are certain impression. And as we are evolving, life after life, those impressions stay. And then cumulatively or combinedly, they are producing contradiction. And what is that contradiction? Is Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is the process that I'm on is the right process? How can I survive if I try to be humble? How can I survive if I don't make my personal endeavor? So all of these are impression of birth after birth. And due to that impression, we have various emotion of being recognized as somebody, recognition to be even known as a advanced devotee, serious devotee, pure devotee. So all of these impressions we have in our mind. And with all of that, it creates very confusing environment, and we are always not sure what to do and what not to do. So that's very important to understand that we are basically combination of multiple innumerable experiences that we have seen in our lives. Not only that, but also we are in the process of transmigration. Transmigration is also called process of samsara, which means getting caught into the cycle of repeated birth, old age, disease, and death. So we have a gross body, which are made of gross elements, and then we have a subtle body, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So all the impression that we that get accumulated in the form of mind, intelligence, and false ego. So this gross body is engaged in acting. It's engaged in doing certain activities. It could be material activity. It could be gross activity. Both types of activities we are engrossed in, and with that there is a certain impression that comes out, and that impression gets deposited, get stored in forms of mind, intelligence, and false ego, which are known as our subtle body. So when we leave this body, while we are living this body, very, very important, this verse itself will be talking so many beautiful things today. So please pay attention. So when we leave this body, the gross body stays here. and shuttle will move on. And when shuttle is moving on, it's moving on with that impression that we have accumulated. And then it moves to uh, next uh, body, and then it again, creates the confusion. At the time of death, one mind and intelligence create the subtle form of a certain type of body for the next life. Whatever one remembers when one quits the body, one will attain that stage of being without fail. And we read that verse in 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Yamami, whatever at the time of death one remembers, after leaving this body without any failure, he receives that. So if one think of Krishna, one can purify this gross and this subtle existence. So process of devotional service is basically purifying both the gross and subtle existence. And for that, Prabhupada is saying that one need to be trained. See the logic, how it's flowing very nicely. One need to be trained. And if one is trained, what should be the training? Training should be that we should not be so much uh, materially motivated, knowing that the material motivation have been cause of our suffering. You and I and all of us who are around in this planet, on this planet, we all are suffering the result of our previous material motivation. So there should be proper training given so that the conditioned soul should not repeat the same mistake. Very powerful, very powerful. Should not repeat the same mistake. All the mistake that we have done. It's a very powerful statement. How to uh, disassociate ourselves from this pool of material, conditioning that we have been carrying. Soul has this body, but soul has nothing to do with this body. This body is engaged in material activities. So how we can start differentiating between soul and material activities and existence, and trying to see the load that we have been carrying, this material load, how I can slowly and slowly start taking off from myself. This is a very powerful realization. This itself should guide us how we should deal with each and everything that's happening in our life as a devotee. How this material burden can be disassociated, given away, so that soul becomes drishta. Soul, as a pure soul, we become drishta. We are just watching, even things that's happening in our life. We are just watching as a pure soul. We are watching the suffering that I'm going through, the torture that I'm going through, the respect that I'm going through, the disrespect that I'm going through. Coming to that, stage where we just watch things happening in our life as a drishta, knowing that me myself has nothing to do with what's happening to myself. This is very, very, very technical and very good point. If you know, so how we gonna start seeing that disassociation? That is why this training is needed. And for that training, the process is given that one should try to uh, strict with the basic do's and don'ts. And that's what we have been studying. What to be avoided, what to be adopted. That's what basically Mahaprabhu is teaching to Sri Rupa Goswami for us, so that the coming generations in the future, they would know what to do and what not to do. So one must follow the regulatory principle, which is founded on Bhakti Bhakti, and then add limbs of Bhakti, such as Sronam Kirtanam, Vishnu Smarnam, Pada Sevanam. All the 9 limbs of the Bhakti should be added. And then the next one Prabhupada is talking is mood, where to read, where to reside. And one should try to reside in Vrindavan. And in this particular, this is another topic that one may ask: are we living in the Vrindavan or not? We'll talk about that later. But in this particular context, Prabhupada is saying that Hare Krishna, in Vrindavan, within a range of 84 kosh, Chaurasi, kosh yatra, that normally when we do Vrindavan yatra, it's like 84 kosha. So Chaurasi kosh within the periphery of Brajbhumi, if one is living, he is living in Vrindavan, and there he should take shelter of an advanced devotee. That's the verse is saying, that live in Brajbhumi, engage in the limbs of bhakti under the guidance of a advanced devotee. And then the next one talks about taking the guidance. One must place oneself under the guidance of a particular associates of Krishna, follow the footsteps of the devotee with a feeling similar to that devotee, and thus serve Krishna. This is applicable both in the stages of sadhana, when we are sadhaka, practitioner of Krishna consciousness, sadhana bhakti, or when we have come to the stage of sadhya, where we have very much perfected ourselves. So either we are in the sadhana stage, or we are in the sadhya stage, which means completely perfected. One should take shelter of a bona fide devotee, follow his instructions, and do the bhakti process. And whatever mood that person has, the follower will acquire the same mood. Or the mood that you want to serve Krishna, you should find a person who is serving Krishna in that mood. So that's what basically the next 2 verses are talking about. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is quoting Bhakti Ras Amrita Sindhu, Bhakti Ras Amrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion, first section, second chapter, verse number 294 to 295. So Nectar of Devotion, once we get there, we'll understand more about this. It says as Krishna Asmarnam Janam Chasya, Janam means person. Prestham Nij Samhitam, Prestha means to reside with that person. Tat tat katha rataschashu kuriyad vasham braje sada. Okay, so we'll just read the translation. What I'm going to say exactly is what given in the translation. So please pay attention. A devotee should always reside in the transcendental realm of Braja and always engage in Krishnam, Asmaran, Janam, Chasya, Prestham, the remembrance of Sri Krishna and his beloved associates. By following in the footsteps of such association and by their eternal guidance, one can acquire the intense desire to serve the Supreme Lord. So, similar statement is given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu also, which is being cited by Srila Prabhupada here. Seva sadhaka rupena, siddha rupena chatrahi, tadbhava lishuna karya, brajah lokanu sartha. Seva sadhaka rupena, siddha rupena chatrahi, tadbhava lishuna karya, braja lokanu sartha. So, Sheva Sadhaka Rupena. In the transcendental realm of Braja, one should serve the Supreme Lord, Seva Sadhaka, with a feeling similar to that of his associates. Means the person whom we are following, he should have the same feeling, that feeling we are trying to strive. What are those feelings? Shanta, Dasya, Shakha, Vatsalya, Madhurya. That's the point we are trying to come. And one should place himself under the guidance of that particular devotee and follow his footstep. Okay, so we all are doing that. Devotees who are initiated, that's what they are doing. They are more or less trying to cultivate the mood that our spiritual master has, which is Dasya Bhav. We all are follower of Dasya Bhav, following their instruction, following his footstep, and trying to live in an environment which is like Braja. That's why it's very recommended, very much recommended, that we are not living in Braj Bhumi. We are not living in the 84 periphery of that beautiful, most powerful land on this planet, Vrindavan. But wherever we are residing, if we have the same mood and we are following the same guidance that's being given here, then we are living in Vrindavan. It's very important that in your house, in devotee's house, we should have beautiful altar of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, beautiful altar. That should be the main center, the boss of the house. The main attraction of the house is the house where you have your altar, not in a corner, not in a place where you never go. The most, the place that is the most attractive, the most beautiful place, the place where you stay the most, amazing place in your house should be altar. All the decorations and everything opulent should be there in front of Krishna. And then also you should have Mother Tulsi. Keep 3 or 4 plants of Tulsi Maharani and serve her wherever she is. That's the Braj Bhumi. Brinda is basically Tulsi Maharani, and one is forest of Tulsi Maharani. So we are living wherever we are, but please, if you can, try to serve Tulsi Maharani and have a deity at your house. Do the deity worship on a very regular way. Morning arti, whatever you can do regularly, and that will create the environment of residing in the Vrindavan. We have the spiritual master, and follow the other limbs of bhakti, such as Sranam Kirtanam, that we all are doing, hear about Supreme Personality of Godhead, chant his holy name very seriously. We talked about that in last class, that the very first stage is Nama Pradha stage of the chanting, and then we come to the Nama Bhasa stage, and then we come to Shuddhanam. So we might be in a Nama Apradha stage where our chanting is not perfected. We are still doing the 10 offenses against the holy name. And you can, read those 10 offenses. Normally, when we chant, before you chant, if you can recite those 10 offenses of 10 offenses against the holy name, then that will remind you. So these are some of the, guidance that that we need to follow to create the environment or the mood of residing in Vrindavan. So that's what basically this purport is talking so far. So now, since we are talking about 9 limbs of bhakti, Prabhupada, since the Saranam is the most sublime, powerful process out of 9 limbs of bhakti, Sranam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smarnam, Pad, Sevanam, Archanam, Bandhanam, Dashyam, Shakhyam, Atma Nivedanam, Saranam. So Prabhupada is giving us the idea that how Saranam can make our life perfect, how Sharanam can lead to pure devotional platform. So there are basically 5 stages of elevation in our Krishna consciousness. The first one is mentioned here, Sarvan Dasa. So Sarvan Dasa means in a neophyte stage, we had to hear name of Krishna, Sarvan Dasa. We have to be subservient. We have to be very, very, you know, surrender to hearing process. Hearing should be continuously done. This is right now hearing going on, hearing from devotees, Krishna Katha, and then by hearing we elevate and come to the stage of Varna Dasha. And Varna Dasa is basically the stage where now we get attached to the hearing process. We start releasing the process of hearing. And with that releasement, we advance and come to the stage of Smarana Dasha, means remembrance of the Krishna. And then what are the different stages of remembering is mentioned here. That first we try to remember Krishna, and while we are trying to make that endeavor, there is chance that we'll forget him. So again, trying to bring our mind back. And that's the step of recollecting or having a distracted remembrance of the Krishna, where we are trying to remember Krishna all the time, but we forget him. So try to bring ourselves back. And by doing that, we come to the stage of dharna. And dharna is the stage where we are now absorbed. We are very much trying to pay attention to the face of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to the feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, on his arms, on his neck. So dharna means very much trying to meditate on the form, or trying to remember the form of Krishna without distraction. So dharna is the stage where we are absorbed in Krishna consciousness with not much distraction. Of course, a lot of purification has to happen. And then after that, dhyana stage comes. And dhyana stage is basically the stage where our remembrance of the Krishna is very, very concentrated. It's very focused. It's very, very, pivotal, it's kind of pointed. That type of, remembrance we have for Krishna. And if we have come to the dhyana stage and we have a very focused remembrance of Krishna, then that take us to the step of anusmriti. And anusmriti is basically constant meditation with deep focus. And then finally, that leads to samadhi. And samadhi is the unceasing anusmriti. This is the stage where we are completely free from all types of impediments, all types of contaminations are gone. And just wanted to a little bit side rail to give you the understanding that when we study Srimad Bhagavatam, in Srimad Bhagavatam, in second canto, there is descriptions about the limbs of Ashtanga Yoga. And the description of that limbs given by your Acharya is exactly like this. So sometimes devotees say, so are we following the Ashtanga Yoga or we are following the Bhakti Yoga? You can see here that Dharana, Dhyana, Smriti, Samadhi is also a very, very advanced stage of Bhakti Yoga too, where our focus is not for some mystic perfection, but our focus is for devotional perfection. But the limb, which is dharana, dhyana, anusmriti, and samadhi, is there. In third canto, there is a discussion going on between Mother Devavati and Kapil Dev. Kapil Dev is Krishna himself, and Devavati is asking questions about, how to free oneself from this this aham mameti understanding. How one can elevate. Because all that thing that we just talked before, that we have the impression of birth after birth, and with that impression it appears very, very difficult to disassociate ourselves from what we are seeing around. Then Kapil Dev is giving a beautiful process of bhakti, and in that process he mentioned these steps. So there again devotee ask, is it Astanga yoga or is it bhakti yoga? No, it's perfect bhakti yoga. It's perfect bhakti yoga. Process is same, or the name appears to be the same, but the goal is different. The goal is here to perfect ourselves in bhakti. So, samadhi is the stage where we are without any disturbance, without any distraction. We are fully in the remembrance of Krishna. Sama adhi, completely absorbed. Sama is always a upsarga that makes something perfect. So it's completely submerged in remembering of Krishna. And then with that, bhavapana, bhavapana or apana stage comes, where we start now understanding that what is my spiritual identity, what exactly I am. We had so much of the covering, life after life, but by this process, we come to that stage where apana dash, where we start realizing our spiritual identity. Who am I? Jivare Sarupaya Nitya Krishna Das. We have been eternally serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but due to some conditioning, we have lost that relationship. So now we have to beg our dear Father to help us so that we can revive their consciousness. And in a process of reviving their consciousness, this apana stage will come where we'll know ourselves, who we are, and how I have been serving, what mood I have been serving Krishna eternally. And then after that, this sampati stage come. And sampati stage is purely perfected stage. Remember, we were talking about bhava and prema. Bhava is a budding flower which is almost ready to open and be completely mukulita, completely open, and spreading its flavor around, its aroma around. Before that, there is bhava stage. So apana is also more or less bhava stage, and then sampati das is fully perfected stage of bhakti. So here we just saw the example that how hearing itself, when we hear about 9 limbs of bhakti, devotee asked a question that do we have to take 1 limb, 2 limb, 3 limbs, 4 limbs, all limbs? How many limbs? Answer is given just one. If we just take one very seriously, that itself will perfect us. That itself will make our life perfected and will take us to the point of pure devotional service. My dear devotees, I do not have qualification to talk the subject I just spoke. Also, I do not have tinge of understanding what I spoke. But by mercy of Krishna, spiritual master, and all the devotees, these are the realizations, these are the process of advancing ourselves in the bhakti. These are the process that we have to aspire for. If we are being called out certain dash, certain Devi Dashi, then here are the uh, steps we have. We have to become Das of Sarvana. We have to become Das of Varna. We have to become Das of Smarna, remembering Krishna. And then Apana and Sampati stage will come. So very beautifully, Prabhupada in the purport has given a very much milestone, very much step-by-step process, and how that process is going to look like for one who is advancing in the process of bhakti. Very powerful. So I request all of you to read the purport. When you will read the purport, you might not see this much detail. I had to put all of that together to make that clear. When I myself did the Bhakti Sastri, I did not, really get to know all of these things in very systematic way, but I tried to, do my best to present these things to you. So take these things very seriously. Nectar of instruction, each and every line, each and every verse. Please, take that. And how to take it? Information is there. Information, of course, is there for sure, but information should lead to transformation. And that's one of the things, I always try to focus that the devotional service that we are doing, whatever status, whatever capacity we are serving, the service should lead to transformation. Transformation is the goal. Why we are doing this? Not for information, not just to know that these are the different stages and I would never reach that. No, I made a little bit point in the last class also that wherever we are, whatever stage of consciousness we have, make our best effort, very best effort, and act that you are going to be one who will see all of these steps. So with that mood, with that fire of bhakti, that intensity, if you strive and keep all the distraction out, then slowly and slowly, slowly and slowly, slowly and slowly, will be lucky enough to see these steps. So I request all of you once again to go and read the purport very carefully. I'm going to upload the class on YouTube. You can hear. If you have any questions, we can discuss back and forth. This is a very powerful topic, one of my favorite topic that I can talk on. So again, after that, last part of the purport, Prabhupada is talking about bhakti. Okay, so bhakti, we talked a little bit of that in last class also, that there are two pathways. There are two approach in bhakti. In bhakti, not talking about Ashtanga yoga, I'm not talking about any other yoga. In bhakti, in devotional service, there are two pathways that lead us to Krishna. Bhadi Bhakti and then Raganuga Bhakti, Raga Bhakti. Bhadi Bhakti is the Bhakti where we follow the guidance of Shastra, Guru and Sadhu. Guru, Shastra and Sadhu, whoever will basically follow these three pathways slowly and slowly, they will make their life perfect. That's what we remember in the, if you remember in the verse, it was said, staying in the braja in association of a devotee and following his footstep. That's what it is here. So in Bhakti Bhakti, that's what we do. We are following the instructions of a guru or sadhu and making ourselves, advance in the process of bhakti. So that's one path. The another path is basically raga path, spontaneous love for Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that raga is basically seen into Brajavasi, who are very advanced, and they are doing or serving Krishna more in a certain bhava. And I said, just to give a quantitative understanding, that Badhi is more of a mind related activity, or something that has to do more with the mind. When we are in the neophyte stage, we have to, or our mind will remind, no, I have taken vows to chant 16 rounds, so I have to adhere with my chanting. My mind will remind that if I don't follow the four regulatory principles, I'm going to drop out. Or if I don't read Srila Prabhupada's book, I'm not going to understand and I'm not going to have firm faith in Krishna consciousness. If I do not go to holy places, do not serve Tulsi Maharani or Vaishnav, I'm not going to have the blessing. So some of these things we do because mind, there is some force for higher thing, and that drives us. But this is not our spontaneous natural raga. It's not. But the raga is one where one has desire to serve Krishna, and that has two category: bahya and antara. Bahya. So one can engage in serving Krishna in Bahya stage. So Raga Bhakti can have Bahya stage. And Bahya stage means one has the natural tendency to love, to worship Krishna, but still that person will follow some process. Okay. He will basically serve Krishna by chanting the name of Krishna, taking the nine limbs of bhakti that we said. So he will have the natural tendency, but he will take the limbs of the bhakti. But in the antara stage, the internal stage, one is very very advanced, and one may not necessarily be engaged in so-called bahya process, but internally that person is always serving Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is also again very hard to understand. Normally, we say XYZ is very advanced, because he gets up in the morning at 4 o'clock. He chants his round very nicely. Somebody who is giving very nice lecture. Oh, this Prabhu is excellent. He gives such a beautiful lecture. Somebody has very Sastric understanding, then we say that that person is advanced. But Antra Raganuga Bhakta, one may be internally very, very exalted and may not have some of this Bahya quality. So that's why when we are dealing with person, this should awaken our consciousness to have respect for people, because we are limited to our own self. We only know where, if we are doing the introspection, then we ourselves know where we stand in the process of bhakti. I do not know what somebody else is in. So that is why have that respect, have that, some sort of understanding to deal with people. So this Antra and Bahaya Raganuga Bhakta will be Raganuga Bhakta. Now he has a spontaneous love, but he will still take some process of bhakti. But Antara Bhaktas, not necessarily. He may not, but he is always, in remembrance of Krishna. So these 5 rasas, remember we have been talking that there are different mood that devotees serve Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you and I, who are trying to serve Krishna, should take shelter of a person who are serving Krishna in one of this mood. So our, basically mood is Dasya Rasa. Now, these 5 rasa, Shanta Rasa, which is basically the rasa where we are serving Krishna more in the mood of neutrality, such as Lord cows or his garlands, flowers. They are serving Krishna. His flute serving Krishna. So that's the rasa in which one can serve Krishna. And Dasya rasa is basically serving like Lord Hanuman, serving Krishna in a servitude mood. And Shakya rasa is more like serving Krishna as a friend, such as Sri Ram, Uddhava. Uddhava is very, very exalted person. Subala, very exalted personality. If we do Bhagavatam, then we'll hear in third canto Uddhava's pastime. So beautiful, so beautiful. And then Sudama. Sudama, all of us know. And then in the Vatsalya Ras, basically Nand Maharaj and Yashoda, and Madhurya Ras, Srimati Radharani, all of her eternal associates, Vishakha, Lalita, and then the Manjaris, the gopis who have taken the servitude mood of Srimati Radharani. So we in Gauriya Vaishnava, Brahm Gauriya Vaishnava Sampradaya, we follow Dasya Rasa. So how to understand that? Are we only limited to that dasharas, or are we doing other rasas too? Or are we doing other rasas too? That itself is a beautiful discussion, which is not within the scope of this course, but we can talk about it a little bit. I can give you the glimpse, and this comes very beautifully in Chaitanya Charitamrita, sixth chapter, where basically the Panch Tattvas, says Rupa Sanatana, sorry, not the, Sri Rupa Sanatana, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasati Gaur Bhaktivinda. These five personalities are mentioned, and they are basically uh, incarnation of the Lord, who have come in the you know form of a devotee, or some of them have come in the form of a Jiv Tattva. Some of them have come you know in the form of Guru Tattva. But doesn't matter what form they have taken. In every form, they are serving Krishna. So Shakya Rasa, although the bhav is as a shakha, but in Shakya also, they are giving that type of pleasure to Krishna. So it's servitude. Vatsalya Rasa, as a mother who can serve more to their babies than mothers, mother and father. So in Vatsalya Rasa, they are serving. And in Madhurya Rasa, Srimati Radharani is serving. She's serving, she's trying to give the happy, the most happiness Krishna can get. And she tries to serve Krishna in that way. So just to keep it a little bit concise, the point here is that in every rasa, the prominent rasa is Dasya Rasa. Or we might be serving Krishna in Vatsalya Rasa, but in Vatsalya Rasa also, we are serving as a servant, Dasa Rasa. So we'll talk about that. These rasas are like petals, petals of the Golok Brindavan, is a lotus petal. And the lotus flower has petals, and those petals are these rasas. And the devotees who are in that particular rasa, they reside. So the petal is basically their abode in Golok Vrindavan. All of that is a little bit different topic, but we'll talk once time comes. But the point I wanted to make is that, just for some clarity, is that this Dash Rasa is prominent in other rasas too. And in Madhurya Rasa, Das Rasa is very, very prominent than the Das Rasa in the Das Rasa. Okay, service. So Lord Hanuman can give pleasure to Lord Sri Ram. But Lord Sri Ram, the pleasure that he gets from Srimati Radharani cannot be expressed. Or Srimati, Sita Devi. Or, Vishnu, the pleasure that he gets from Srimati Lakshmi Devi cannot be expressed. But Vishnu has so many other servants who are serving. But Srimati Lakshmi Devi is also serving him too. So that's how we have to understand how these rasas are. And finally, Prabhupada is summarizing and concluding this purport, that one should become immersed in hearing the narrations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by associating with the devotee in a particular mood, and then follow their footstep and aspire to become like the Braja is the best place to serve Sri Radha Krishna. Therefore, even Lord Brahma and Uddhava prayed to take birth in Braja as a blade of grass or a shrub. So this will be further built in the next verse, where we'll understand what is the most prominent holy abode, and we'll talk about that next class. I wanted to keep it limited to this verse only, because I myself think that it's a very powerful verse and so much powerful information we have here. I would like to have some discussion, some realizations, some understanding, and if there is any questions. Thank you. Dandot Pranam. Hare Krishna.